Hi, today I have for you a tutorial on Chaturanga Dandasana. And there's a lot of tutorials out there for this asana because, well, it's challenging. This is a full body energy booster. It's a confidence builder, especially as you work further into it and progress. And it also increases your body awareness and makes you learn a little bit more about your body alignment as you progress further into yoga. Uh, with Chaturanga Dandasana, obviously it is a huge strength builder. It requires a good amount of upper body strength. It'll strengthen the hands, the wrists for sure, up into the arms, the shoulders, the traps, pecs. And also, you work into the feet. Your toes are going to get a little bit of work because you will be on the toes for the posture, and also somewhat into the legs and the torso as you keep the torso nice and firm so that you lower down in that nice plank posture. So, as we get started, we'll talk about the ways that we should look for alignment in different parts of our body. And at the end, I will have lots of options for you to take in this posture and ways maybe to spice it up. So, stay tuned and let's look at Chaturanga Dandasana. So first things first in Chaturanga, there is a lot of muscle activation going on, and I just want to be really clear on what it is. When we do Chaturanga, you generally hear this cue during the vinyasa portion of our sequence when we're transitioning between poses and you're flowing from down dog to plank, and then they say take your Chaturanga. I want to be clear, when we're taking Chaturanga, they don't mean this. That is not the Chaturanga portion of your vinyasa. Chaturanga is what you have between plank and upward facing dog. So when you're in plank, you should shift forward, lower into Chaturanga, and then upward facing dog. Oftentimes this is cued so fast, and you see practitioners who are so used to doing it that they become faster at it in their practice that it seems like it's all just one asana, but really plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog, three different things. And to learn them, maybe take a little pause in between so that you can assess your form and make sure that you're doing it correctly. Okay, starting with alignment. Now, when you go into your chaturanga, you are starting in a plank position. So I will just start here in tabletop so that I don't have to hold plank for several minutes. But obviously in your plank, your hands, the fingers will be spread out wide. And especially as you lower into chaturanga, the fingers will press deeply into the mat. We want to push the floor away, and you'll feel that middle knuckle, and you'll see it even on camera here. You'll probably see my middle knuckles start to lift so that I'm pressing deeply into the finger pads of each finger and using that control within the hands. Now, in your plank pose, your feet should be back far enough so that you're more on the balls of the feet and you're not directly on the tips of the toes. Okay, so you can see that in the camera. Here I am pushing back through my heels, actively engaging through my quads and pushing so that I'm on the balls of the feet, not on the toes. There I am on the toes. You feel a little bit more unstable. I can see that I'm actually more even just on my big toes and second toe. So not much is touching the mat there. We're pushing back into the ball of the foot. And then also the feet are about hip width apart. Moving up the body here, just checking our plank position before we start the chaturanga. The legs are about hip width distance apart, and they're drawing up and also energetically drawing inward, like you're trying to draw the thighs together. So you create this really strong, stable, stick-like position. Just as you are in plank, as we move up to the pelvis and the tailbone, it's important to keep the tailbone just slightly tucked as you lower down into your chaturanga. And the hips should stay at about the same height as the shoulders so that you're not hiking up the hips and lifting them up as you lower down. So as you lower into your chaturanga, You should shift forward. Hips are about the same height as the shoulders. Next in the Chaturanga, as we move up towards the torso, you're shifting forward onto the balls of the feet and your tailbone is slightly tucked. Your torso stays strong and the rib cage starts to draw in. You create this hollow body shape with your stomach and your abdomen, and use that to stay strong as you lower down. If you want to think about it, when you create a hollow body shape, that's just like when you're on your back in the hollow body position. You're taking this shape, but you're doing it on the opposite direction so that you're face down. And you can think of it as drawing the bottom of the ribs towards the hip points. You're creating this scrunching position and making that space between the hip points and the bottom of the ribs just a little bit smaller. Okay, here we are now to the upper body and into the shoulders and the arms as we execute our Chaturanga. When you lower down into Chaturanga, you shift forward, you bend the elbows, and the shoulders should never go below the elbows. They should always be at least the same height or even. Now, also, as you lower into that Chaturanga, it's not like a regular push-up you would do in the gym where your elbows splay out to the sides. Your elbows are hugged in tight, and the tighter they are to your rib cage, the easier time you will have lowering down. If you let them fall out to the sides and wing out a little bit, it'll actually be a lot harder and you'll create more stress in your arms and in your elbow joints. So, coming into our plank, shifting forward, bringing the elbows in, lowering down about halfway, hollow body hold throughout the belly, pushing back into the heels. And I'll just push back up for the sake of visiting here. And when you are in that upper body hold, it's also important to protract the shoulders. When you protract the shoulders, they are separating and spreading wide across the back. That's protraction. Retraction is where the scapulas come together and they pinch like this. That is something you want to avoid in your Chaturanga because you're going to feel your shoulders get up towards your ears. Your elbows are probably going to want to go out to the sides and you're just going to collapse down onto your mat. So pushing actively away from the mat, really pushing strong into the hands. Shift forward. As you bend the elbows, hug them in, and then the shoulders are rounding down and back. And slowly lower yourself down to the mat and taking your upward dog if that's what you have next in your vinyasa. Now we reach the top of the head into your Chaturanga because we do need to think about that as well. As you lower down in the Chaturanga, we don't want the we don't want the chin to tuck all the way down into the neck, and we also don't want our gaze to be gazing up at the sky. So we don't want to do this. Okay, we should never lead with the head, and we don't want to do this because that causes a lot of neck strain. We want a straight line from the crown of the head all the way to the heels, shifting forward, just gazing directly down below you, lowering down, and then upward facing dog if that's next in your vinyasa. Like any yoga posture, you have options, and as you build up strength, it's important to take some of these options so that you get that upper body strength and you don't sacrifice the form for your good alignment. So we want to make sure that we're doing these postures correctly so you can build up the strength and then generally prepare yourself for other asanas in the future. I know once I started getting Chaturanga, I felt stronger in my entire practice overall and just a lot more confident as I was able to eventually come off of the knees and then take this in my flow as I would see the instructor do. But I still have days where I'm like, I will just stay on my knees for Chaturanga, and that's fine. We all have days when we need to pull it back, so come down to your knees and take that option. And that's where we will start, is with the knees down option for Chaturanga. So when you're in your plank And a plank can always be in knees down as well, but you're in your plank, so your wrists are underneath the shoulders. And from here, we just take the knees down. And as you can see, the knees are behind the hips. As we lower down, shift forward slightly, bring the elbows in. And you don't need to come down very far. If this is as far as you can go, that's where you stay. Work to build up your strength until you can lower further down. Still, the elbows are hugged into the side and the shoulders are forward, slightly higher than the elbows. Take that posture as much as you need. Maybe practice it a few times during your sequence, just so that you can get used to how it feels. Now, this next option is if you want to progress from having both knees down, well, then we just go to having one knee down. So starting in plank, we'll lower the left knee just for demonstration's sake, and then shifting forward, the elbows come in, lowering the chest down to your half chaturanga. And then if you want to come to your upward facing dog, maybe lifting both knees back up off of the mat and go through the rest of your vinyasa. The next options are maybe a little less feasible if you're in a full flow, just because they take a little bit of setup and that would require the use of props. But if you want to use a block or two to support your chest as you lower down, you can place them in the center of your chest, take a plank, and then lower down, and use that to help yourself find the alignment. Maybe take some time to check how your feet are positioned. Maybe the legs need to be separated slightly. Look back at the elbows and think, well, are they at about a 90-degree angle? Am I drawing my navel in? But as I said, that does take some setup, and it's not always easy to move the blocks in and out in front of us when we're going through a fast-paced yoga flow with our instructor. Another prop you can use is just grabbing a chair from the kitchen table. I know a lot of times I find myself randomly doing yoga poses around the house, but if you want to check your form in your plank, or maybe you're having some issues with shoulders and they can't take the full weight of your body, you can always do this at a chair or even maybe at a higher height, like a kitchen island, and just lower slightly down, bending the elbows, and then coming up. It really only needs to be a couple of inches, and you can really feel the back of the arms working. Keep the elbows in tight to the ribs, draw the core in, and you will feel the whole body work, even though you're at a much higher surface. How do we spice up our chaturanga? Well, it's already pretty spicy, but you can come into a chaturanga from plank and make it a one-legged plank, just lifting up the left leg here for demonstration. Shift forward, drive the elbows in towards the wrists, and come into your chaturanga. Holding here, a little bit of off balance, and then continue with your flow. Another option I see taken instead of chaturanga is knees, chest, and chin. So, and it's just like it sounds, your knees touch, then your chest and your chin. When you take your chaturanga, and the only downside that I can see to this option is you do sacrifice some of the form of chaturanga because the shoulders are obviously much lower than the elbows in knees, chest, and chin pose. And when you take your chaturanga, you want the shoulders to be higher, just slightly higher, or even with the elbows. So just for demonstration, if you're taking knees, chest, chin option, starting from plank, lower the knees, then the elbows do still come in, but you touch the chest down, then the chin, and then you come up into your upward facing dog. So that does take a little bit more work in your flexibility and your upper body. And I would say For me personally, I would skip that option and just work on strengthening my chaturanga and focusing on that instead of taking knees, chest, and chin, because you may sacrifice some of the good alignment that you could gain if you just worked on taking your chaturanga with knees down or maybe a one knee option. And then the last option for chaturanga is just skip it. Just completely skip chaturanga. If you can, go through plank or take a child's pose and then just meet everyone in upward facing dog. You will eventually build up the strength and know that we are all there. And there are times as a teacher where I need a break too, and I just don't want to do chaturanga. I'll go straight from my plank and then push back into a down dog or maybe a quick timeout in child's pose. We all need a little break, and we need to let ourselves know that it's okay for our body to take that break and then later on come back into it and work on building up the strength. I hope you found this tutorial useful and that you can continue to work on your Chaturanga Dandasana. I do have a full sequence on strength building in your Chaturanga Dandasana that will work your upper body. I promise it's not just 100 Chaturangas in a row. There is a lot of upper body work as we flow through different poses, and you can give that a little try and find that on my playlist under Foundations of Yoga. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You'll find a new video every week. And if you enjoyed this, please leave a comment below and let me know if you have anything that you would like to learn in yoga. For now, have a great day. Make it a good one. Bye.